This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, and tonight I am joined by my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how does it feel?
A little weird. That feeling of anticipation you get for a big game the day of the game and everybody's walking around cleaning their houses. I'm already way past that. I've cleaned my entire house today. I don't know what to do with myself anymore. This Sunday can't come fast enough in my life, dude. It's just dragging by. So I'm super excited that I get to talk to you and actually get somebody to really talk about this game with.
Seriously, and we were talking pre-show. I was kind of complaining about being crazy busy at work, and you were reminding me I was probably lucky. That it helped my day go by fast. Yeah. So tonight's show is brought to you by Uncle Jumbo's. Our friends over at Uncle Jumbo's presenting it, and our friends sponsoring the show from West Her. We'll talk about them later on. But tonight we thought if we were going to dive into the Kansas City Chiefs, their game plan, what it's been like, we might as well bring on an expert ourselves, Kent Swanson at Arrowhead Pride. Kent, how we doing?
You are throwing the word expert around very lightly. Let me just say that.
He does that.
Yeah, it makes us sound more important if we're having experts on. So it goes better that way.
You were one of the top tally site guys.
That's right. That's right. We jockeyed back and forth at the end of the year.
We were both in the top 5 for a minute. I think did you wind up winning?
I ended up number 1. I'm number 1 overall right now.
At the beginning of the season, Greg and I, last year we did a bet where every week we would just take random bets, and we said this year we got invited to do the tally site. We'll do an overall on that. And I felt pretty confident. I didn't realize he was going to win the whole thing. So not only did I make a bet with the guy, and then he beat everybody in the world too. So killing me, man.
I got on a hot run at the end. That always helps. And obviously, if the team you support and root for goes on a hot run, that helps too. So I'm not getting logged by any homer takes. So
is it a coincidence that the two teams in the AFC Championship have some of the better predictors on tally site? I don't think so. I think there's a Packers fan up there too.
Yeah, it is. There really is. I think some of the top are Chiefs, Packers, and Bills. It is funny the way it worked out.
What's Tampa? Well, they're slacking.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it's we'll get into that in a moment. But obviously, for anyone who's not aware, Kent's one of the lead guys over at Arrowhead Pride. So for those of you who love the work at Buffalo Rumblings, it's the same guys that are handling all that stuff over there in the Kansas City world. So, as we get into this, I think right now it's easy. Fans live in the moment, and recency bias obviously takes over a great deal of what we're going on. I think people see Kansas City as this dynamo, just like unbeatable juggernaut that's been good forever. But really, a year ago, you guys were very much in the same spot that we were, in that, oh my gosh, is it finally going to happen? I mean, it had been 50 years between Super Bowl championships, and getting to that point, how has that transitioned covering the team and for the fan base, going from are we going to finally get over the mountain to now, oh my gosh, we made it, and now getting into defending your title territory?
Well, it's a great time to be covering the Chiefs, frankly. I mean, we're gonna ride the Mahomes gravy train as long as we can, right? But I think it's kind of weird between the Bills and the Chiefs. I see a lot of similarities, and I see a lot of similar pain. Obviously, you guys have had some more extreme pain because you lost a lot of Super Bowls, and I'm not trying to bring that up right now. And yeah, I see that little tremble there. But I think both of these cities have come through a lot of pain, a lot of distrust. And I think even now there's a hint of that anxiety that creeps into Chiefs fans still, even though they're coming off that Super Bowl. I think there's a lot of Chiefs fans that still feel that anxiety, that pain. But I think, obviously Patrick Mahomes and the confidence level he has brought to this city and their football team, I think you've really seen him win that over. I think we're all rolling into the AFC Championship game. This is our third straight one. We've had D Ford offsides, and we've finally got the Lamar Hunt Trophy in Kansas City. So we've seen both ends of that now too with Mahomes. I do think there's a weight lifted off, but I think there's just a little bit of scar tissue there still too.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of Bills fans right now are feeling pretty confident going in. They've had a good season. They feel like they can play with anybody. That might be some of that almost for lack of a better term, youthful confidence of like, hey, we haven't done this before, so why the hell not? Why not be confident? Having been there now 3 times and seeing how tough it is, one, to get there, how tough it is to get back, and how those can be really games that come down to a mistake. How confident do you feel right now with the Kansas City fan base and this team is that they're going to go in and take care of business here on Sunday?
I think the experience does help for sure. And I think, Buffalo, first off, frankly, this isn't me just saying this. I love Bills Mafia. I love y'all. And the Bills have kind of been I would say almost like a guilty pleasure for me. I've been keeping an eye on them. I've been very fascinated with what Brandon Beane's been doing. I really like what Sean McDermott has done. I'd go watch, the quick replays of y'all's games the last couple of years because I'm really interested in how you develop Josh Allen. So I do have a lot of love for y'all there. I do think there's a level of confidence though with this football team that I think you feel pretty good about the outlook. The experience I think is something that they're going to be able to hang their hat on, and I think that really could be a big step for Bills. For the Bills in their growth and development is getting to see. I think they've made great strides this year. I think if the Chiefs do ultimately pan out, like it's going to be really good for the Bills, and they're going to be back here a lot more times. Like I think this is like part 1 of the Mahomes Josh Allen duel, and I think we're going to see it several times in the next 10 years in this game.
I think that, when you look at what the final 4 AFC quarterbacks were, and then you're talking about that didn't include Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and soon to be Trevor Lawrence, it's a really exciting window of AFC football. It might be tough for teams who think they're going to go on some untouchable dominant run. There's people coming at us, but it's a really exciting time, and I don't disagree. I think that there's a chance that this could be the first of maybe something exciting coming up down the line here.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it, guys.
As we look at it, let's dive in a little bit into the matchups here, and I think every week, Aaron and I do this, and we kind of talk to the fans that people know the names for fantasy football. They know the names that are clear-cut, and we usually try to help build out some of the other pieces there so people can see a little bit more there. So obviously, there are very few defenses that are as clear of that delineation as there is with the Chiefs. So everybody knows a Honey Badger. Everybody knows Chris Jones. Everybody knows Frank Clark. Help us a little bit on some of the other pieces that really make a difference there in that, not a lot of Bills fans, know who Ben Neiman is. Not a lot of Bills fans know who Tershawn Wharton is. Some of the pieces that help those other names flow, maybe let's start up front in how they're able to get pressure on the quarterback. Who are those guys alongside Chris Jones and Frank Clark that can bring a little bit more pressure into Josh Allen and see if they can hurry up his clock?
I mean, as far as guys that are real tangible, I think one of the big things is there really hasn't been a ton of guys step up, and I think this is one of the weakest spots on this Chiefs roster is kind of those secondary pass rushers. Guys, Taco Charlton actually did a really good job earlier in the year. He was productive. He had more juice than any guys kind of coming off the edge there for the Chiefs, so they've really struggled to find some additional pass rushers. One of the guys that you did talk about, though, Tershawn Wharton, he's been kind of a sub-rush guy. He's been a guy that they've kind of put in position to kind of pin his ears back on some of these, third down situations. And he's got a little juice along the interior. He's an undrafted guy at Missouri S&T. He's got a lot of quickness off the snap. And, if your interior struggles with quickness, he's a guy that can create a little bit of quick pressure. A lot of it's been schemed, though. They've really had to add guys into that rush, from the second level in order to try to generate pressure. That's been one of the big problems with this team is outside of the Chris Joneses and the Frank Clarks, they've had some issues, really getting some consistent pressure outside of those guys. And it's been up to Spags a lot of times.
So moving into that next level, I know Willie Gay was a guy that we put in a lot of work in in the draft lead up. I know he's been dinged up here. So now seeing some of the other names, Anthony Hitchens was a name that when he became loose, the Bills were right there tied, and you had guys on Twitter going after him, trying to get him to sign over here as he got released. How have they managed a fair amount of movement back and forth of reps and guys, who's starting each week and the injuries coming back and forth to the point where now sometimes you hope that can lead into some progression, but some of the recent injuries, has that caused a step back, or you feel confident with the group they're coming forward on Sunday?
Yeah, I think, the linebacking core has been relatively weak the last couple of years of the Steve Spagnuolo era. Anthony Hitchens, he's had a really kind of rough start to his time here in Kansas City. His first 2 years weren't particularly great. He's really come along this last season, has played really well. He was out due to COVID for a little while, and the Chiefs definitely felt his loss for sure because they were having they've had issues, with some communication. That's been the big thing with Hitchens, and they have their communicator back, and he's set in the front, and he's been a really effective communicator, but he's also playing a little bit better. He's a little bit more downhill. He's reacting a little bit quicker. He's been a big asset to this team. And it's a good thing that they have him back because I think it would be tough to not have that guy on the field. But it's kind of weird. I'm not trying to just completely diss on this team and this team's the Chiefs' talent on the defensive side of the football. But you've definitely we've just highlighted their two weakest points, that front and their linebacking core is fine. You said Ben Niemann. I don't want to talk about Ben Niemann. he's a pain point in Kansas City, even though he does get a lot of opportunities, he gets a lot of snaps because they trust him in the dime. And, it's kind of a pain point for this team with the linebackers too.
So, and that brings us to the secondary, and obviously that's been a fun journey for the Bills as we've gone through this because for the first time in forever, we're not that concerned with secondaries. Like before it was, oh man, they're going to be able to shut down whoever we have. And now it's turned around into, well, they got good guys, but nobody can cover Stephon Diggs, so it doesn't really matter. So as we're getting into that now, I'm interested in the chess match one-on-one with Josh Allen and Tyrann Mathieu, in that who's able to get a read on the other? Is he able to pick out where he is? We don't have that, running back out of the backfield or the tight end that's going to be a huge commitment for him. He's not a guy who's lining up mano-a-mano with Cole Beasley in the slot trying to cover man. Like that's not his world. So I'm interested in that. And then I've seen the aggressive play of L'Jarius Sneed. I like Breeland. How are they going to match up when it comes down to guys like John Brown, Gabe Davis, and whatever the strategy will be on Stephon Diggs?
Well, everything does start with Tyrann Mathieu. Like there's no doubt about it. And I think just throughout that entire defensive side of the football from a leadership perspective, but the versatility that he provides, when L'Jarius Sneed came back, and honestly, L'Jarius Sneed's been a revelation this year. They lined him outside at the beginning of the year. I believe he had 2 or 3 interceptions and got his hand on the football every single game. Came close to an interception the first 4 games, came back or had an injury and had to come back. They moved him inside, and since he's been inside, that's freed up Tyrann Mathieu to be a little bit more versatile throughout the he'll play in the slot, he'll play deep. They've just moved him all over the place, and that's really added an extra layer to this defense. And I think since that's happened, this team's been really, really hard to throw on and have a ton of success with. So Tyrann Mathieu is the key to all that. They move him all over the place, and that's definitely something not Josh Allen's gonna have to keep an eye on. He's gonna have to know where he's at. They do a lot of unique. They have a lot of unique ways to basically get into 2 high structures. So they're going to play a lot of cover 2. They're going to play, those 2 high structures, and you're going to try to really help those corners outside with a guy like Stephon Diggs. The Chiefs have done a pretty good job staying on top of guys and number 1 receivers. That's one of the things that they've done a pretty good job of for the most part. But Stephon Diggs is going to get his, but one of the big things that they're going to do is they're going to really focus on trying to take him away. They're going to be physical with him at the line of scrimmage, and they're going to keep safeties. They're going to probably play too high. So they might invite a little bit of that running game.
So I'm curious, and the Bills, even when invited, still sometimes don't run the ball. So it's all relative. Even when they get a nice invitation, that's fine. We'll still pass. So I do think that we see they've converted so much of that into the tunnel screens, the quick outs. Cole Beasley's entire game has really turned into an extension of the run game as they've done it. So I'm curious, as you said, you've watched a lot of the condensed games and seen that progression. What are some of your thoughts on what you've seen with Josh Allen as someone who I try to explain this to some fans that when you get used to watching every rep from Josh Allen and then you watch other games and you see how differently the ball comes out of other quarterbacks' hands, sometimes it's weird. And you're one of the few guys who puts in that much work with a quarterback that has that,
right,
that you can appreciate the fact of, oh yeah, that's how normal humans throw the football. It doesn't just go and automatically get there. What are some of the things you've picked up with Allen's progression this year that obviously we're ecstatic and over the moon for it, but even the most unbelievable fervent Bills fan didn't project this to come at this degree. What are some of the things you've picked up with Allen's progression so far?
First off, I love Josh Allen, and I got to catch some L's on my draft analysis on him because
join the club.
You love the tools. It's just there's not very many well-run organizations that are going to do everything in their power to build around a guy, and I think the Bills have done a phenomenal job of doing that, and Josh has met them to that point at to the development. He's risen to the occasion with everything around him. I love it. You love to see it, genuinely. It's really enjoyable to watch. I think, he's done a really good job. I think he's gotten a lot better taking the easy stuff. I think he's been more consistent. And, you'd see some stuff where the ball's kind of sailing on him and, maybe, he doesn't need to throw with a clean base, but sometimes the poor base would get him in trouble with some of the easy stuff early on. But it looks like he's gotten a lot better down the field. And he's really been, he's shown more consistency and the ability to throw with a little bit more touch. He's kind of starting to understand, what it's going to take to get completions down the field. And I think you've seen a lot of that. Short to long, I think there's just been really good growth. But the thing that I've been really noticing about him is, he really toes that line between madness and brilliance. And you saw, I think, against the Texans last year, he tried to do a little bit too much. And, I think there's some mistakes that he made down the stretch that really cost you guys in that game. He really hasn't made that many of those kind of plays this year, at least from the games that I've seen. It's, he's really done a good job managing those big critical key mistakes. There looked like there might have been a couple plays that, he got a little bit lucky on last week.
Sure.
But overall, you got to be thrilled with the amount of mistakes he's not making.
We try to warn people all the time. We can't celebrate the crazy plays that he breaks away from the sack and then rifles it 40 yards down the field and then get mad that in one of them he gets stripped it's a package deal and there's way more good than bad on that side of it. But that competitiveness, and he's the hardest quarterback to sack in the NFL, it comes with a cost, and sometimes it's getting stripped when you're fighting to break off with the guy. So hopefully it doesn't happen in a critical moment would be the nice part.
Right. No, that's got to be the hope for y'all.
It happened to Brett Favre throughout his entire career where he would throw into triple coverage and people lived with it because he had such a winning record and all that stuff. So you live and die with it. Let's talk about this offense. Everyone knows about it. I don't have to go through and list every single person on this offense that the Bills have to stay awake at night trying to figure out how to stop. Let's start with, can you just tell everybody here that's going to listen to the show that's Bill fans that Patrick Mahomes is playing? He's going to be fine. He's going to play on Sunday. We don't have to prepare for Chad Henne. We don't have to have a conversation about Chad Henne right now.
No, I'm going to keep the mystery around it like the Chiefs are, guys. Technically he's in protocol. Yeah. And, I think you guys should focus a lot of time on Chad Henne personally because, he's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know how. It was a real tight race between him and Mahomes coming into camp for QB1. So,
you
kept a really good straight face during that whole thing. That was good.
And even if we use all of our time to focus on Mahomes, really at this point we know the book is out there. There's no real this is a guy that you hope to contain, right? Like that you just hope that you can maybe get him into some mistakes. Doesn't happen a lot. One thing I noticed in watching that Chiefs game, and I think probably the injury that should probably get a little bit more talk here is that toe. I think he'll be fine to play, but I think that toe is something that is actually going to have some impact on him. But dude, I'll tell you what, I was watching through that Chiefs game or through that Browns game here earlier this evening talking with Eric, and I was like, dude, he's dragging this front foot the whole entire second quarter, but a normal quarterback, you do that to really anybody else that needs to throw from a solid base, it's going to impact their ability to deliver a ball. He's such a rare quarterback, similar to Josh Allen, where he has so much arm talent that he's dragging that foot and not able to get a base and still dropping dimes on guys' numbers 20 yards downfield. So how much, if at all, do you think this toe injury is maybe a bigger deal than the concussion, something that could impact his game on Sunday?
Thanks for that draft pick back in 2017, by the way. I don't want to minimize concussion protocol in the slightest. That's not what I'm doing. I tend to believe he was not choked. I tend to believe he was choked out. I really do believe that based on the things. I tend to believe it. I'm not a concussion expert here, but I am more worried about the toe right now than I am about the concussion protocol right now. And you're absolutely right. He was overcompensating with his lower body in the second quarter. You saw him kind of adjusting his drops a little bit to try to help maybe put a little bit less pressure on that toe. And you saw some plays, especially when he was trying to throw to his left, some throws that he makes 100% of the time. He was kind of just thrown into the ground and thrown wide, left or right. There was some significant issues with that toe. Toradol is a great drug though. And the second half, he looked a lot more comfortable, so comfortable that they wound up using that little option play on that fourth and short, or third. It might have been third and short. They ran an option play with him with the toe injury and all to try to get that little yard. So I don't think it was bothering him too much after they kind of did a little bit of pain management at halftime. So it's definitely something to watch if it starts getting aggravated. If it gets aggravated early in the game, like that's definitely something he's going to start looking like Big Ben when he's dropping. He could throw better than Big Ben now still, but there's definitely some stuff there. Like if he doesn't have a little bit of that mobility, it could really present some problems for the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's a great point on the mobility, because I think in that first matchup, week 6, he kept a number of those drives alive and it's not the crazy Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson scrambles. It's 5-6 yards here or there just to get it into a 3rd and 2, which you can't really stop the Chiefs on a 3rd and 2. So hopefully that some of the mobilities calm down even with some drugs, so that we're not getting those issues. Normally at this point, I would go into the skill position players. Everybody knows that, right? Like everyone that's ever watched a football game knows about these Kansas City Chiefs skill players. I want to talk to you about this offensive line a little bit, because it's probably the one piece or this team that's really just moved around. A lot of pieces have been interchanging here, even since the last time we saw you guys in week 6. There's some new pieces here. Can you tell us about what's going on with this offensive line, what Bills fans should expect, if any difference from the unit that we saw in week 6?
I believe Mitch Schwartz played the first 2 series against the Bills and then wound up coming out. And his replacement, I think, was Mike Remmers at that game. Mm-hmm. Mike Remmers is still the right tackle. But here's the thing about Mike Remmers. He's actually their 3rd choice at right tackle this year. They drafted Lucas Niang in the 3rd round, and they expected him to, have a role. But he wound up being one of the few draft picks to opt out this year. So they're on their 3rd option at right tackle. And one of the Chiefs, roster construction, they haven't spent a lot of money and they haven't invested a ton in their interior offensive line, and that's the case. They've got Austin Ryder at center, who started the Super Bowl. Him and Eric Fisher are their only 2 starters from the Super Bowl last year. Then they're starting Nick Allegretti, a left guard. He's the heavy-footed, can't block in space, but he's just stout and sturdy at left guard. And then at right guard, they got Andrew Wiley, a guy who can kind of move a little bit from Eastern Michigan. It's a thrown together group a little bit. They've just kind of had to piece things together as they've gone along, and it's one of the weaknesses of their team. Frankly, I know there's some good metrics out there about how they're a decent pass protecting team, but I think a lot of that has been Mahomes and his ability to beat pressure, and identify pressure quick. Some of that creativity getting out of the pocket. I think they can be had a little bit. Really strong front fours have, the teams that have been able to get that strong front fours have given them some problems. Now you guys got a little bit of interior pressure. That's probably, one of the things I'm most interested in watching is, how a guy like Ed Oliver does against that group. But they can be had for sure. Especially if Mahomes is a little bit hobbled, that could be part of the recipe.
Yeah, and I think obviously the key to Mahomes is that 4-man pressure, whether it's Bills bringing a corner and dropping a lineman, however you get that 4-man pressure. But with kind of guys that struggle in pass protection, do you think that book's totally written on Mahomes? Do you think that teams can get home with some blitz packages? Cleveland didn't blitz a lot, but they looked somewhat successful in some of the times they did blitz.
I think it's got to be tendency breakers if you're going to do it. Yeah. It can't just be you leaning on your own staples. Like Leslie Frazier's got to come with stuff that he hasn't shown yet. Right. I think that he's got to try to catch them with some stuff that they've kind of held back in the bag and just try to throw that at him and to have a shot at it. But even then, his field vision's absurd. He just sees things so cleanly. And Mike Kafka, their offensive coordinator, their quarterback coach and passing game coordinator, whatever you want to call him. He talks a little bit about how Mahomes, if he sees it once on tape, he's pretty much got it. He's identified some stuff from some teams very quickly. So, you're going to have to really be creative if you're going to get it home with him, or you're going to have to hope that he's just a little bit less mobile.
Yeah. Now let's switch over to the run game here real quick. This will be kind of the last thing we touch on because obviously the Bills sort of invited that in the last matchup. And I don't know that they're going to get a ton away from that. Obviously, they're not going to roll out the same exact game plan from week 6, but I think that they might have somewhat of a similar approach. Edwards-Helaire looks to be on pace to come back for this game. I think that's probably a negative to a game plan like that after what we saw. But that really started, that offensive line really moved the Bills around up front, especially in the interior. Very physical unit in the run game. Do you expect, and getting preparation for this game, I think it's a little bit of a different Bills front than you guys faced week 6. Do you think the Bills will be able to get different results if they invite the run in this game with the way that their defense is playing, or do you think that that's probably not a good game plan to go ahead and invite the run again?
I think I'm thinking anytime you can take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, I think it's smart. So if you're gonna, I think it's really smart by the Bills to invite the run. I don't know if it was much about that front. I mean, I know the front was a little bit hurt last time these two teams played on the Bills side. The Chiefs started Daniel Kilgore at center. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, that game, and that was his first game. And I think that might have been Nick Allegretti's first start as well. So that was those two guys kind of getting a look there. I think it was a lot about box count, though. You know, I think the Bills played with a really, really light box. I think that's what had to do with it more than the front or, either side of the, ball being able to be moved or the line of scrimmage being changed. I just thought it was just as much about box count as anything. So, I mean, we'll see if Clyde Edwards-Helaire plays. I'm not uber confident yet, that he's going to play. He had a limited practice last week and then wound up on Wednesday and wound up missing the rest of the week. Tomorrow's a big day. Thursday's a real big day for the Clyde Edwards-Helaire status. Damian Williams is nothing special. I mean, he's the guy that's going to go down and he's just going to put his head down and get what's there, which is great. It worked to the tune of 6 yards per carry last week. But I would invite the Chiefs to run. I think that's a smart strategy.
Yeah, I agree.
So as we kind of wrap here, we got to put you on the spot. I know you said, you're confident, you're the defending champs. It's been kind of fun. We've had a couple games in a row where people have had to kind of be bashful about it because the Bills were supposed to win. It's kind of different to flip it back around and now we're playing the defending champs and we're the underdogs. What kind of game do you expect and what's the score prediction?
I think there will be some points scored for sure. I think the thing that's interesting about the Bills is they undoubtedly have the kind of ceiling to hang with Mahomes in this offense. I know there's a lot of metrics and DVOA, and there's a lot of things that really kind of slept on the Chiefs a little bit. But the Chiefs' ceiling, I think, is frankly, I think that the ceiling for the Kansas City Chiefs is better than anybody's. The Bills aren't far off, though. I mean, I think the Bills are the second best team in the National Football League. I think the number 1 and 2 teams in the NFL are playing on Sunday for a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
This is the game of the week.
I 100% agree. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a shootout. And I think, what it's ultimately going to come down to is I think that experience that the Chiefs have is going to be what ultimately gives them a slight edge. I think Josh Allen's awesome. I love the fact that I'm wrong. I love the fact that there are some factions of football Twitter that maybe really like spreadsheets that are really mad that Josh Allen's, having a lot of success. And I think he's going to be a great player. I think he already is a great player. I think he'll make a couple mistakes that ultimately cost the Bills this game, not in a necessarily bad way, just in a sense that, I mean, it's trying to go toe to toe with Pat with all that experience. I think is tough, but talk to me next year. I think it's going to be. The Bills are going to get the Chiefs one of these times in the next 3 or 4 years. I really do believe that. I don't think it's this year, but I think they use this opportunity. Give me 35-30 the Chiefs.
I'll take it. I say it all the time, man. I bring the comparisons back to Jordan going up against Detroit back in the day. It took a few years to get past good teams. This happens to great players all the time where you go head to head with the best that are doing it right now. And you almost need that loss to learn to get past it.
It happened with Pat. I mean, They lost. He got. I mean, Brian Flores called a phenomenal game in 2018 and slowed him down in the first half. And he came back scorched earth, and he almost brought him back. But that's just kind of what his progression was. He came back pissed off, and
Right.
really good things happen for this organization the next year. And I kind of feel like that might be what happens with the Bills here.
Sure.
No, we appreciate it, man. So for anybody who's out there, find out it's Kent_Swanson. You can find him at Arrowhead Pride. Anything you want to pump or have them check out?
No, I have nothing to plug. If you want to listen to some Chiefs perspective, I guess you can listen to the Arrowhead Pride podcast. We have a good game preview show we'll be doing here on Friday. If you want to hear a little bit of a Chiefs angle and kind of what we see as the big keys on both sides of the ball against the Bills.
Awesome, man. Appreciate
it, man. Have a great time. Looking for an awesome game on Sunday, and hopefully one of us takes it down and takes the championship.
That's exactly right. I'm Bills Mafia all the way.
Go AFC.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Appreciate
Thanks
it, man.
For having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Later, okay, yeah, it's good talk. All right. Obviously, it's fun to have somebody like Ken on to be able to go through and,
not us just homer out over.
Yeah, obviously, just tell everybody how amazing the Bills are. But I think Bills fans don't realize how similar Chiefs fans were to this spot last year. Like going into last year, they had lost in the previous AFC Championship game, so the Bills hadn't even made it that far. We barely, we just made the playoffs and lost to Deshaun Watson and the Texans. But coming back again and now having, that season to come forward, they lost Patrick Mahomes for a period last year, and then people kind of slept on him because Lamar Jackson was having that amazing MVP season. People don't remember last year, everyone was picking the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl. The Ravens were the team that was the hot pick. The Ravens were the team that everybody thought was destined to win the Super Bowl last year, and then by far the number one seed. And as they rolled through, and obviously they get bumped off by the Titans and everything goes haywire, that whole time, I think people just underestimated how devastating this team is. And I know Bills fans have looked at the ugly game against Atlanta and the ugly game, against Cleveland and some games where the Chiefs have not looked good. But the Miami game. But to what Kent said, when they flip the switch and they turn it on for that moment, they're literally unstoppable. Like it's just unbelievable how devastating their offense can be in just, all right, guys, we've let Atlanta hang around long enough. We have to score on this drive. Boom, boom, boom. And it's unbelievable. It's going to take some special plays to beat this team.
Yeah, all that stuff you just said, though, the Bills also. And that's where I'm at. I'm having a lot of frustration right now because I'm seeing different media personalities, different people saying, how do the Bills slow down Kansas City? How do the Bills? What is the DiBiase, Joe DiBiase, Sneaky Joe from WGR just put out a poll? How many points is the minimum the Bills need to score? We need to ask those questions about both teams here because I know he said DVOA is inflated. At this point in the season, DVOA is pretty solid, right? Like you have a pretty big sample size for the season. I think statistically, as much as I've given DVOA crap, when you get to this point in the year, all the teams that are in the top of DVOA are the final four teams traditionally that are vying for this spot. So I think when you look at DVOA, the Bills are right there toe-to-toe. I think when you look at points per game, Bills are right there toe-to-toe. I put out a tweet right before this game or before this show, dude. Both teams have 9 30-plus point games. Like we talk about this Chiefs team as this unstoppable offensive juggernaut. Well, I got news for you guys. The Bills, by every single metric, are right there too. So, and I think the Bills defense is a little bit better than Kansas City's defense. So we've got to talk about just as much, just because they're the champs, and I respect that. They are the champs. I agree with them. They have the edge and experience. It's really hard to get back to the Super Bowl twice. That's been proven time and time again. We need to talk about the Bills in the same way we're talking about the Chiefs in getting ready for this game. I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday, but in preparation for this, we need to stop acting like the Chiefs are on just an entire different level than the rest of the NFL because the Bills are right there with them.
So speaking of that, our segment tonight for Let's Talk Numbers, if you're looking for a vehicle, find our friends over at West Her, 23 dealerships in the New York State area, the biggest dealership group within New York State. When you find that dream vehicle, it's time to get down and talk numbers. Aaron, what you just pointed out, I was playing around, and obviously the Bills social media group does an awesome job, whether it's goofy, funny stuff, making fun of Stephen A. Smith or Nick Wright, making us cry with videos. Michelle, good Lord, the team making those videos are unbelievable to be able to go through everything. They also do some nice posts as far as, all the different information they put out. And one of the normal ones they do is just the side-by-side, the tail of the tape that they put together for each team. And it came out this week in their normal tweet, that goes through the leading the charge and all the different game release information. And they have the tail of the tape where they go through, 15 different stats of points per game, points allowed per game, sacks, turnovers, third down percentage, penalties, average yards given up. And I start looking through. It is uncanny how similar these teams are in that the Bills are first in something, the Chiefs are third, the Bills are sixth or 13th in something, the Chiefs are 14th, the Chiefs are first in yards, the Bills are second, giving up yards, they're 16th, we're 14th, giving up passing yards, they're first, we're third, passing yards given up, we're 13th, they're 14th. Every single one is like one or two off, and the things they're bad at, we're also bad. We both have a lot of penalties, weirdly. We both give up a fair amount of yardage. Going through, we don't have awesome starting field position, or they don't. Neither of us have a ton of pressure. We're kind of average in the same things. We're all explosive in the same things. These are the same teams. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is kind of fun to take a look at. So I obviously always take a look at DVOA. Somebody brought it up. Bills are currently ranked first in weighted DVOA. Yep. Kansas City sixth. So I get why he's saying that they're probably a little unfair to them, but I don't know, because I think it comes down to the defense. So super close across the board here in offense when we're talking about it. So Kansas City takes it in pretty much every category offensively. They have the second overall. Bills are fifth. Weighted, they're third overall, Bills are fifth. Pass offense, they're second, Bills are third. Couldn't be any closer. Rush offense, they're 13th, Bills are 22nd. Neither are world beaters there, we know that. But then you get over to the defensive side of the ball, and this is where I think the Bills separate themselves a little bit in this game. Yeah. Overall defense, Bills are 12th, Kansas City's 22nd. This is totally different, too, from when we first met them. We were talking about this defense. I don't know if you remember that episode, and we were saying they're the second best passing defense. Like, this is
it was shockingly good defense.
Yes, I'll tell you. Weighted overall defense, Bills are 8th. They're a top 10 weighted overall defense. I think that is going a little bit unnoticed here. They've given up a lot of yards. They've given up a lot of trips into the red zone, but teams aren't scoring on them here in the second half of the year. Kansas City's even worse weighted. They're 24th. Yeah. Pass defense, Bills are 12th. Kansas City's 16th. So that's probably the closest one on this side. Rush defense, Bills are 17th. And people talk about the Bills' rush defense being bad. Kansas City's 31st. Yeah. Rush defense, according to DVOA. Special teams, Bills are 4th. Weighted, they're second in the league. That's not getting talked about enough either. Kansas City's 17th and weighted 11th. So I think super close, lots of things super close, and I'll touch on one more in a minute after I get your reaction here, but Bills beat them out 8-4 in DVOA categories, and a lot of that is on the defensive side of the ball. And that having the better defense, I think, matters this time of year.
100%. And I think the items that Kent talked about are valid. I do think Patrick Mahomes has championship game reps that Josh Allen doesn't have. That's real. I think that, playing in and winning a Super Bowl against, at that point, a healthy, phenomenal 49ers defense.
And the way he did it.
Yeah, not the, shell of a defense that we saw this year, like their badass defense that they had last year. Right. He has legit reps that Josh Allen just hasn't had a chance to get yet. Those matter. I think that it gets dismissed that, that's the advantage, so the Chiefs have the advantage. That's valid. The Bills have a materially better special teams. And then on defense, I think that because they have Tyrann Mathieu, they have Chris Jones, they have Frank Clark, people either equate the two defenses or even think that they're better because they have honestly three superstars that are, they have household names that besides maybe Trey White, that they might have three of the top four players of any defensive player in the game, but then we might have the next 12 or 14. Like, we have guys who don't start for us that would be their fourth or fifth best defensive player. Our defensive line rotation, all of them would be their third best defensive lineman.
Yeah. Our linebackers would be some of the best players.
God, all of AJ Klein would be an every down starter for them. He would play every single snap for them. Our secondary, Trey White's better than any of their corners. And Teron Matthews fantastic, but he's different than Jordan Poyer or Micah Hyde. They are like a unit, right? So correct. Like to have that unit at safety tandem, it gives you. Honey Badger gives you a lot of different abilities of things that Spags can do. I like having the two safeties where they're interchangeable, and I get Mahomes has seen a lot of looks, but they can give looks that nobody sees and nobody knows is coming, and they're interchangeable. Yeah, and obviously, Swanson is nowhere near on the level of what either Poyer or Hyde are, and they play a handful. You see Juan Thornhill a fair amount, who kind of plays a third safety deep role, like a little bit of what Micah Hyde tries to do, but not nearly as well. And I think that depth and the quality of the overall defense could be what comes up, because you're not going to stop Patrick Mahomes, but what you need is to take advantage when you get the one or two opportunities. When that ball gets tipped up in the air and flutters around, they have to intercept it. If a fumble happens, they have to recover it. When they have a chance to make a play, you must make that play and convert, because like you said, if we get the extra possession, our offenses are way closer than anybody wants to admit that they are. And if we get the extra possessions, then it could matter. If we don't, if we simply let them go through their normal motions on offense and we simply try to outscore them, they could win that shootout. They just have guys who can make plays. We don't have a plan for Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is going to have a big game. I hope it's not monstrous. He's going to play well. We're not great against tight ends. He's the greatest tight end in the world. It's going to be a problem. We need to not let other things happen along with it, like last time where we held Tyreek Hill to 3 catches and 20 yards. We need some of those things to happen. And then the fumble that should have happened with Clyde Edwards-Helaire that Zimmer caused, that his knee ended up being down, we need that to be real and to recover that fumble so that we can cash in.
I mean, I'm telling you, the rewatching that Week 6 game was incredibly frustrating. Tremaine Edmonds was a hand away from a pick that would have put them already in field goal range before the end of the half. Josh Norman had his hands on a pick that he dropped. Like, there was opportunities to get more and squeeze more out of that game. Toxic plays were super close. The Bills gave up that 37-yard pass to Pringle on a 3rd and long that was a killer.
It was basically the backbreaker.
Yeah. Definitely hurt them. But other than that, they didn't give up those big, deep balls. And I think if they take a similar approach to what they did in that game, and like you said, I think this team is better than they were in Week 6. And even though Kelce had a big game, going up against a bad AJ Klein, like, we have Milano back. Like, I'm not sure. Yeah, Kelsey's the guy that you got.
He's not shutting down Kelce, but he'll do better than AJ Klein.
And they'll attempt to contain him. And Edmonds wasn't playing at his best at that point in the season yet either. One thing that concerns me the most about Kelce is his ability to be in the backfield and come out as a blocker. He's an incredible blocker, and I don't think that gets talked about enough in Kelce's game. But here, while we got the numbers up, some other really interesting ones that are really close here. Explosive plays, something we love talking about, right? Toxic differential. When we went into the last game, I think the weather had something to do with it. Josh's injury also had something to do with the lack of explosives, I think, from the Bills. They almost connected on that Diggs one where he just dropped in the end zone. That would have put him over the top. But right now, according to Sharp Football Stats, KC is second in explosive pass plays with 74. Bills are third with 71. They only have 3 less explosive pass plays than this prolific Kansas City Chiefs offense that everybody talks about is the greatest offense in the world and they can put up 50 whenever they want. Bills can do it too, guys. They are 10th in explosive runs. So while they're not the most prolific rush team in the league, they still get explosives. They have 60. I think this is one that's going to surprise a lot of Bills fans because we talk about the lack of production from the Buffalo Bills rush offense. They're 12th in the league right now in explosive runs, and that kind of matters a little bit more than establishing the run, right? We want explosive plays, and they've got 57. They're 3 behind KC. So talking about similar, again, in explosives. KC gives up the 6th most explosive pass plays in the league at 58. Buffalo's right there, 13th, 53, which is not something we've seen out of Bills defenses. Buffalo gives up the fourth most runs, explosive runs, with 69. And we saw that come to fruition in that last Kansas City meeting. I think they've gotten better here. Obviously, the Indy game inflated that quite a bit with the explosive runs. And here's the one part that the Kansas City defense does a really good job in. They're 29th in giving up the 29th fewest or whatever explosive runs, and they've only given up 41. Again, like I said, points per game, Buffalo's getting 30.3 points per game. Kansas City's at 29.1. I mean, that's super close, guys. Opponents' points per game, they're both tied at 22.3. Like, you can't get these numbers. We do a lot of matchup shows. We look at a lot of numbers and look at a lot of teams. I haven't seen a cleaner. I wouldn't go as far to say it's a mirror match. They're different teams, but this is as close to the Spider-Man meme of each other pointing at each other as we've seen this year.
John makes a great point here that I know a lot of people have brought up. One of the other guys that is listening to, actually a friend of mine who's a Chiefs fan, Glenn, talking about that when we talk about points, the Bills gave up more points than the Chiefs. I think people would be surprised to hear that the Chiefs gave up fewer points than the Bills. That's pretty heavily skewed early in the season. Yeah. So the second half of the year, the Chiefs have had some lower scoring games, like that weird game with the Falcons and some other teams like that they haven't blown out teams. So I know a stat that was up on NFL Network since week 9, number of 10 plus double digit victories. The Bills have the most with 8. The Saints had 7. The Packers had 6. The Chiefs have 0. They haven't beat a team by double digits since week 9. I'm not trying to say that's some weird chink in the armor or that they're all of a sudden, way more beatable. But there is something to the fact that they're maybe not clicking on all cylinders the way that they were. And it doesn't mean they can't simply flip a switch and turn that back on. But it is interesting that they're there. And John has brought this up. I was shocked when I heard that Josh Allen's completion percentage this year is higher than any season Peyton Manning or Tom Brady ever had.
Yeah.
That's shocking. That's such a crazy number.
Yeah, but part of that is just the way football's going.
Yes, right? That's a progression of the league. Yeah,
absolutely. But the points too. Last 3 games, Bills have only given up 17.7 points. Like that, this defense is getting right at the right time. It's something we've talked about a lot here, and I agree. Like Kansas City, again, you talk about their lack of double-digit wins, and not saying they could come out and put double-digit win on the Bills. Like that wouldn't
for sure
totally
that
shock
is in
me.
The realm of possibility.
They're a good enough team to do this, but I think this idea outside of the Bills Mafia fan base, and it makes me feel like a homer. I'm talking to my wife; she's like, "God, you're such a homer the way you think," and it's not. I think we have this idea of who the Kansas City Chiefs are, and I'm not seeing that there's somebody necessarily that the Bills should be scared of, or like the national media is just picking them in bunches and saying this is the best team in the world. Nobody's even close to them. There's no reason or indicator on paper, on film that tells me I need to be like super fearful of this Kansas City Chiefs team, that they're just going to come in and roll all over us and have their way with us.
Well, and I don't think Kent's wrong that these are the top 2 teams in football. I think they are. I think you can make an argument for the Packers, who are also. I think it's a firm top 3, but it's not Chiefs, Bills, Packers. Like it's Chiefs, Bills, Packers, like right here, neck and neck, right where they are. It's very much right in line with what they're offering.
It's going to be the thing that's going to matter the most is the chess match between Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy and Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott, and then Dable and Spags. Like that's going to be whatever they've come up with here through the week and how that's executed.
Couple guys brought up. We haven't seen any trick plays from Dable in a little while. Yeah, he's keeping something in the bag, and I don't know exactly what Frazier would throw at Mahomes that we haven't seen, because we disguise coverages as well as anybody, and we bring more corner and safety blitzes than anybody. So I don't know exactly what other thing we will mix in that we haven't shown before, but I'm excited to find out where that's going to come from.
I bet he'll have some tendency breakers that maybe don't show up in the game broadcast, things that Mahomes would be expecting them to be in quarter coverage, and then they're not in quarter coverage on that particular. So I think he'll play some of those types of games. I think it's idea that you don't blitz Mahomes is a little bit overrated. I some of the best pressures that the Bills get this year is Taron Johnson coming in.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not a blitz. Maybe it's a dropping a lineman back.
It might still be 4, but he might be one of the 4 on an overloaded side to the side that they realize he was going to roll out to. And all of a sudden we're bringing 3 guys off that side and 1 guy floating on the other for a turnaround. And all of a sudden we only brought 4, but we overloaded and they couldn't handle it. And it comes like a blitz, even though we dropped 7.
Yeah, you're still going to see pressures generated that way, in my opinion.
So one last thing we want to go through here, our Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight tonight. Make sure for checking out our friends over at UncleJumbo'sDistillery.com, bringing out all kinds of new flavors. Aaron and I both love the new orange cream soda. I'm going to try the root beer here as well. And I'm actually nervous about how much I might like the Bombsicle when that comes out because it hits my exact flavors that I like. I'm a little nervous that I might like that one too much. We thought for the player spotlight tonight, we want to be able to go through and do a quick update. So obviously coming out of the last game, I was really encouraged today on the injury report. Cole Beasley isn't even on it. So feeling like he's doing better. And I do think a fair amount of his lack of targets was Marlon Humphrey. They had Marlon Humphrey on him a ton. Marlon Humphrey is probably the best corner in the NFL when they move him into the slot. He's a good outside corner and a phenomenal nickel corner. So, he's not on the report. That's encouraging. Some of the ones that we did see, obviously, they're still listing Stephon Diggs with the oblique. That's nothing to be concerned with. They did list Tremaine Edmonds with a hamstring. I didn't see any limitations there, but he was a full participant. Darryl Johnson is back as a full participant, which is interesting because I thought Trent Murphy played pretty well, so that's kind of an interesting play. And where that could come into play is Vernon Butler. We saw him leave the game late. He did not participate today with a quad. I could see a scenario where maybe we play 4 D tackles and 5 defensive ends, and Quentin Jefferson plays more D tackle reps instead of last week. He played a little bit more defensive end reps with Darryl Johnson out. And then Gabe Davis did not participate as well with an ankle. Everybody saw him. He came back in the game. He was laboring. It didn't look great. He wasn't moving around cleanly. So I'm hopeful that that's just rest and getting him back right. But I'd say this is, for this late in the season, a pretty encouraging injury report.
Definitely. They've really lucked out here throughout the year. And Kansas City's get right at the same time too. Yep. And honestly, you like to see it. I want to see the best versus the best. And I don't want the excuses built in that they were missing key contributors.
If you gave me the choice and I could choose if Patrick Mahomes played or not, I think I'd choose for him to play. Like don't get me wrong. There's a piece of me that just says nobody will remember it. If the Bills go on to win the Super Bowl, they won't remember that Mahomes didn't play in the AFC Championship game. I want to beat them. Like I want Josh Allen to beat Patrick Mahomes. I want that to be the way that he does this. And I
what I don't want is to lose to Chad Henne.
Yeah, that would be way worse. Losing to Chad Henne is by far the worst case scenario of any of the alternatives.
I can get on this show after losing to Patrick Mahomes and talk to you about it and be like, you know what? A lot of people have lost to Patrick Mahomes, right? Let's talk about, though, Gabe Davis is one to watch.
Yeah.
I think he's super important to what they're going to try to do. What makes this team special is having that fourth option that's a legitimate threat where if you do have a game where you take away a Cole Beasley or sort of take him out of the game, that you have some of these other options, that's something to keep an eye on. But this is exactly why they brought Kenny Stills in
100%.
For any type of insurance like this. So somebody
Fourth
said
wide receiver, deep threat, he's perfect.
Yeah, somebody here said it. Justin, I think, said it that right here, that I believe Kenny Stills will be brought up and activated for this game. I think Gabe Davis is probably going to come down. He was protected this week. I think Davis is going to come down to the wire. I think they're going to work him out pregame and see if he's going to be ready to go. And if he's not, if it's slippery conditions, like they're saying, maybe it's going to be a little bit rainy on grass. This is why you brought Stills in. He's been here now for 2.5 weeks, going on 3 weeks here. That's enough to give him 8 to 10 plays, something a little bit like that, where he's a part of this offense. And that's why you bring in guys like Devonta Freeman and Kenny Stills for this last run, because we talked about it when they went into the postseason here. That's an additional month of football. For them to be as healthy as they are should be shocking, and we should be knocking on wood for them to be as healthy as they are. An additional month out of the season.
No, absolutely. And It's interesting. I know another one name that people were looking for that we didn't see was Devin Singletary. You saw some people talking about, they thought they saw him grab at his leg. He was back in there again afterwards. Then we saw Yeldon get 2 reps late, and then Singletary was on the field afterwards shaking hands and talking with guys.
Right.
So the fact that he wasn't on the injury report is interesting. Now when you look at, I think that Stills is very likely to be one of the call-ups for this game, the elevations from the practice squad. The fact that Singletary is healthy makes me interested. Is the other person, and I think now it comes down to, does Daryl Johnson play? Could Jake Kumaro be the other elevation? Because he also gives some flexibility from a receiver standpoint and could cover some of the special teams reps. Or do you think it's more likely they go, just in case there was something with Singletary, they pick one of Freeman or Williams again to elevate, and we see a combination of Kenny Stills and Devonta Freeman?
Well, Singletary not being shown up on the injury report was great news here going into this week, because even we saw Tremaine Edmonds with a hamstring, and nobody even knew that was a thing, right? So if this was even a slight pull or even something that he needed to get an additional massage on Tuesday, we would see him show up on the injury report in some regard here, unless the Bills are pulling something that I would hate to speculate on that. So I think he's going to be a full go in this game. And I think Devin Singletary is going to have a big impact if he's fully healthy and a full go. We'll talk about it here as we wrap up, but there were some options available to them. But I could see a scenario where they want to hedge their bet with the run game and maybe not sold on Yeldon, but a little bit happier to have him there than Williams. And you've had enough time with Freeman now in the building where you feel comfortable bringing him up as running back 3, just in case something happens with Singletary, the running game doesn't get going. This is the time to maybe do some of that stuff. This has got to be an all hands on deck game, because he might not get another opportunity in this game. But I agree with you. I think them bringing back Kumaro is interesting. Has that signing been official with the team yet? I know no. I trust Talbot 100%. If Talbot says it's going, I trust him, but I haven't seen it official with the team yet that he's been brought back to the practice squad.
Correct. And Sal also gave him kudos for the getting that scoop and reaffirmed his report as well. So I was a little surprised that we didn't see it at 4:00 today.
Does that also, though, because he went to another team, got cut. I don't know what the COVID.
Yeah, they changed some of the rules, and obviously some fans are asking as well about Mark Ingram. Just from a timing standpoint, if that was going to happen, it had to be today. Like it had, or realistically, it needed to be a waiver claim that they claimed him to be able to pull him in immediately on Tuesday at 4:00. We're past that point now. There's no feasible way you could bring somebody in and on 2 days you're going to put them into the AFC Championship game. You're just not going to do that. Devonta Freeman is at least on 2 weeks with the team now, so. He at least has, he's played in conference championship games. He's played in the Super Bowl. He has that experience. My guess is we see Devonta Freeman and Kenny Stills as the elevations this weekend. But I do think Kumaro is an interesting one. If Daryl Johnson can't go, I could see logic that Kumaro is the call over Stills, but I'd be a little surprised.
And Kumaro could have just been, hey, we have an opportunity to get this guy we put on waiver, contract. We put out thinking that he wasn't going to get claimed. He got claimed. We lost him. It's late in the season here. We can get him back, get him into camp next year. Like that could have just have nothing to do with Davis and just late season. Hey, let's get this guy back in the building and just get him back in our roster. That type of stuff happens. Brandon Beane's always tinkering around with that last part of the roster. So I wouldn't necessarily look too much into, oh man, Kumaro's back. Gabe Davis is definitely in trouble and we might have to do something about him. But I do think it'll be interesting. It's either going to be Kumaro or Johnson. And the way Johnson's played, I know people love touchdown Jesus and he's got 100% touchdown efficiency rating. But
every catch he's ever made is a Bill.
Yeah. But Johnson, I think, has earned, in my opinion, more value to the Bills. He's
a different. He played. They don't play. It's not like they played the same spot on special teams. There's things that Daryl Johnson can do that obviously Kumaro can't.
Yes.
Although Johnson is one of those freaky guys who does play kickoff coverage at freaking defensive end. So
and fantastic. And that was one of my people have killed me. I like Trent Murphy. No, he had a good game last week, but he doesn't do those
Correct.
special teams things, right? And so I was worried with how good this unit has been this year, having Johnson not on it in that game against the Ravens. Like, you want guys. What is that?
Kumaro is a source of information on the Packers. Bean's just thinking ahead.
Oh, we had him here all year. I think either one of those guys is going to be an interesting call up for this game. But I'll tell you right now, before people start getting my mentions about Antonio Williams is not playing in this game. I go out on a limb that he's not playing in this game. I think there's a chance that they do an elevation again for him, maybe, but I don't think so.
Yeah, and it's something that I think last week was a tip of the hat to him as a thank you and as recognition for how well he played in that late game, the second half of that Week 17 game. They were still checking to make sure, just in case something went weird with one of the running backs. You're already thin. You can't afford for there to be anything there. I expect the same thing this week, that they need a third running back available to them on game day morning just in case. I expect that running back to be Devontae Freeman, because they're going to trust his experience, his pass protection, and everything that's there. And then I still expect it to be Devin Singletary and TJ Yeldon. I still do. I don't expect them to elevate Freeman and game day inactive Yeldon. I expect it to be those two, and then I expect Singletary to play 80% of the snaps.
It's a hot take from our boy Anthony. Kumaro will play over Stills. They never want him to leave. Maybe Sean McDermott doesn't really lie about this stuff. Brandon Beane had his eye on Stills for a while, he said, and that he wanted him in the building. So I wouldn't put it behind him that Stills. I think Stills should be higher on the depth chart.
He's a significantly better wide receiver than Jake Kumaro is. Kumaro is a more versatile, well-rounded football player. Like, he can
Kumaro would
on
get
special
probably
teams.
more snaps in the game from special teams. But this game's about scoring points. Yeah. And if Gabe Davis can't go, I need somebody that's going to go in there and going to be able to actually, I know it's fun to joke around about touchdown Jesus, but it's somebody that has proven production in the NFL at wide receiver in some big games. And I'd rather have Stills.
For sure. John, bringing up here, there is a chance that we go through this and that, Josh Allen has a chance to take down the last three MVPs, if it's Josh, or if it's Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers, or Mahomes, or Lamar and Rodgers, or Mahomes, and then taking down Tom Brady, in the fact that we didn't get the chance to do so and see him be taken down. They swept the division. They not only, they swept the division at 6-0, first time that had happened in forever, and would maybe have a chance to put that nail in the coffin to take down Brady. It's fun that we can throw those things around, and it's not crazy. Like, all the Bills have to do is win one more game, and they get a chance to do that.
I might be the only Bills fan that doesn't want to exercise those ghosts or demons. Because I don't want to hear about that for 2 weeks. I don't want the Bills.
That's all you'd hear about. All you'd hear about.
If the Bills win this game, I do not. The national media is so shallow and surface level in their ability to report on anything that every single segment for 2 weeks is going to be just segments about Brady dominating the Bills for 15 whatever years and showing all those clips. And can the Bills finally do it? Like, no, I want to talk about the game itself. Get credit to the Bills players. So I don't even want anything to do with Brady for that reason only, because the media sucks and they're just
We'll go with the three MVPs. We'll go with the three straight
MVPs. That's a great story.
That Josh Allen takes down Lamar, takes down Patrick Mahomes, takes down Aaron Rodgers, and at the coin toss, if anybody remembers, I'm old, so depending on how old you are, if you remember the coin toss at the USC-Texas Rose Bowl, when Reggie Bush was given the Heisman and all the Texas guys were livid that it should have been Vince Young's Heisman Trophy, and at the coin toss, when they did it, when they went to shake hands, all the Texas defenders said, "We're coming to get our boy's trophy."
Yeah.
And I would love for that kind of approach, that they're doing that and saying, our boy was the MVP, Josh Allen is the most valuable player in this league, and we're going to show you today.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. We have come to that moment, Aaron. We have done this 18 times already this year. We have made 18 game predictions. We have predicted the Bills to win many, many times out of those. Not every time, but we haven't picked the Bills to win every time. What is your prediction of what we are going to see this weekend?
So I think I've only picked against the Bills maybe twice this year. I picked against them against Kansas City and Seattle. I think I picked against them in that game. I feel stupid confident about this game ever since it was Kansas City, ever since that Cleveland game. I don't know if it's a gut feeling, what it is. I felt immediately confident. I looked at my wife and said, the Buffalo Bills are playing in the Super Bowl this year, and I don't have any doubts about it. I think that this is a team of destiny. I think that everything is lined up exactly how you make a run in this league to do what they're doing right now. And then I started digging in preparation for this show, and I thought that maybe I'd pull back a little bit because people kill me all the time. You see it, that I'm not as confident as you in this team, a number of matchups. I tend to be a little more reserved, a little more 20 years of getting beat down by this team and pulling back a little bit on my takes. The more I dug into this game, dude, the more confident I've gotten. I'm not sleeping on Kansas City. They can come out and roll the Bills. I'm not saying that. But if you're asking me to pick this game, I had to dial it back a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I have for this, I think it's going to be 31-24 Bills. I think the Bills are going to use every advantage of this. They're the underdogs. You saw the NFL Network. It was like 8-2.
Yeah.
Pick the Chiefs. Everyone's picking the Chiefs. Everyone expects the Chiefs to win. They've been the top Super Bowl odds since August. Like, they are expected to come in and win this game at home. The Bills are just happy to be here, right? Everyone's just happy for the Bills that they got here. They're going to use that. Sean McDermott's going to use every little inch of that in this game. And I think they're going to come out and punch the Chiefs in the mouth. And I think that they get up on them early and then answer every time the Chiefs start to pull back in this game. That Week 6 game was not an indication. I think a lot of analysts are using that Week 6 game as some type of indication of what to expect in this game. This Buffalo Bills team is a lot better than that Week 6 Buffalo Bills team. And I expect that's still lingering in the back of their minds, that they went up against Tennessee and Kansas City, which were measuring sticks internally in that building, and they fell short. And that's been like that Texans game a year ago. These are things that Josh Allen has probably been harping on in his mind and circled an opportunity to play Kansas City. Like, this is their moment. And I think Kansas City might be sort of looking ahead. Not saying that they're sleeping on the Bills, but I think that they expect to play in the Super Bowl, where the Bills are really coming out to win this game. So I think they jump up early. They answer every time the Chiefs come back. I think Bills get a takeaway or two this time that doesn't slip out of their hands and does enough to get possessions back in the Bills' favor, and the Bills capitalize and leave AFC champions. They take the Lamar Hunt Trophy out of Kansas City and bring it back to Buffalo.
God, it's so beautiful when you say it like that. I don't feel as confident as you do. I'm worried that there's a element of the Chiefs that they do enough, but that they still have a significant amount in reserve. I think it's going to bite them in this game. I think the Bills are going to jump out to a lead, and I think the Chiefs are going to come back. And I think we're going to see a stretch from the middle of the third quarter to the end of this game that the two best offenses in football are going to trade haymakers in a historic back and forth that we're going to remember for years, and that people are going to talk about this game forever, and that they're simply going to go back and forth, trading the lead, and that, maybe some early, a missed kick, a 2-point conversion, a field goal is going to set it so it's not 21-21, 28-28, that it's going to be offsetting, and the touchdowns are going to be taking the lead back and forth, and that I think this is going to end up being Buffalo 42, Kansas City 38, and I think it's going to be 38-35, and that Josh Allen is going to throw a game-winning touchdown going through there down with, 45 seconds left, and that they're going to throw a game-winning touchdown to Stephon Diggs in one of those historic moments that we remember as Bills fans forever, and that this is going to be one of those games that I think Kent was spot on. this is going to be round one of Allen Mahomes that we remember for a decade. And that is going to be just one of those crazy, memorable shootouts.
I think that sounds cool. I want nothing to do with that, what you just described. People are
Your anxiety is going to be off the charts.
I don't want anything to do with that. I want to win by 10. And I want it to be the Bills have a nice arm's length and Kansas City's playing catch up. Give me that.
We're going to have people with, cardiologists across Western New York are going to be concerned. There's going to need to be ambulances on standby. Yeah. It's going to be memorable, and we're all going to remember this game for the rest of our lives as the game that put them into the dance. And it's something that no matter what, I think we're going to see a fun game. I think we're going to see a good game. I think there's a recipe that this could be lower scoring than people expect. I think that, sometimes that happens in these games that you have a couple of big moments, but I think eventually these two offenses get rolling and it's going to be crazy down the stretch.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Regardless of the outcome, this is going to be a game that gets remembered. Again, I make these comparisons to the old Bulls, even to the early Bills. They took a couple of years to get over that hump before they were running off for AFC championships in a row. Sometimes it's incremental steps. The Bills have taken a big leap from losing a wild card game last year against the Houston Texans to getting to the AFC Championship. I think a lot of people don't realize how big of an achievement it is. You heard Andy Reid talking about, you heard about Brian Daboll talk about, this isn't easy to get where they are here. To be one of the last 4 teams standing in the NFL is not easy. This is going to be a memory of whether or not they win this game and go on to the Super Bowl, or they lose this game and have to reload for next year. I think this is just the start of a very special 10 to 15 year run of the Buffalo Bills staying in the playoffs with consistency and getting deep runs. And you're going to look back at this 2020 moment as this was the first year that the Bills really arrived. It was fun to break the drought. It was fun to be a consistent playoff team. Now this is going to be the expectation going forward for 10 to 15 years if they continue to do things right way. So I think this is going to be memorable no matter what the outcome is when we talk next on Sunday, late Sunday.
Absolutely. And it's going to be fun. We're going to be here for you guys. We're hoping to be here for you guys to celebrate an amazing victory and to kick off a crazy 2-week stretch that I'm not sure how I'll survive, or we're going to be there to talk about and to be able to, enjoy this great season, even if it did come to the end. We're going to be there for you guys either way. So check back in with us on Sunday night, and we're going to be ready for an amazing victory game, our victory post-game show. Anything you want to leave the people with before we sign off?
Yeah, stop arguing with each other about nonsense on Twitter. Enjoy that the Buffalo Bills are in the AFC Championship game. Don't buy the bait from the national media that are I've been doing it too. Let's just enjoy that this Bills team is right there, like we talked about all night. They're right there with this team. This is probably the game of the weekend. It's going to be definitely the two best teams in the AFC. It's the 1 and 2 seed. You couldn't write it up any better. So, these next few days are going to be long days. It's going to drag. Enjoy it. Just be nice to everybody out there. No fighting over which charities to donate to. Just get over all that and let's talk about how exciting of a year this was for the Bills and that they're one of the top 2 to 3 teams in the entire NFL. Let's just sit there and enjoy it.
Absolutely. And I'll take that a step further. Soak in every bit of everything you can. Watch NFL Game Day Morning, Good Morning Football. Watch NFL Live. Take in more podcasts. Watch more shows. They're all talking about the Bills. It's fantastic. They're only one of 4 teams left. All the stuff that I normally don't watch, all the pregame stuff on the networks that are on leading up into the game. I can't wait to soak it all in this time. I want to watch all the cheesy, over-the-top, corny interviews and things like that. I'm going to try to soak in every second of this that I can. We've waited forever to be able to do this. I want to soak in every single second of it that I can and enjoy every moment of it so that way that victory feels even more real.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you to our sponsors, Uncle Jumbo's. Thank you to West Her. You guys were awesome in the chat tonight. We appreciate it so much. Go out, give us a rating, give us a like, give us a review. Find us, tell somebody else about us, tell your neighbor, tell somebody in line at the grocery store. For Aaron Quinn and Greg Tompsett, we have been the Cover One Buffalo podcast, and we are out.